we were talking about the Marine Corps. And what this particular gentleman's fascination was, what he wanted to know was, how does the Marine Corps turn very, very, very young men into leaders? Unbelievably young when you think about them compared to other parts of our society. For instance, I'll tell you, I remember it like it was yesterday. I used to lead patrols in Baghdad in war. I was 21 years old. I was 22 years old, and I was leading night patrols in Baghdad. 10, 15, 20 men really under my charge. What? Think about what other 21, 22-year-olds are doing. It's weird. How does that happen? This will come back to America and accountability in a moment. Well, how it happens is accountability. Accountability that they drill into you. You individually. Doesn't matter, 17, 18. They don't want to hear how old you are. I don't want any excuses. You have a fresh shave? Are you packed? Did you stay in the run? Did you fall out of the run? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you getting this done? And then very, very, very quickly, you will find yourself put in charge of others. One person, two people. And then guess who's at fault if those guys screw up? You are. You are held accountable. Kelly, this guy under your command, he didn't have enough spare socks. That's on you. Your fault. You're punished. And as it goes up, that was my answer to the man. It was a one-word answer, accountability. You are held accountable at all times, and therefore you have no other choice but to perform and to grow up. And as a result, you have these units. You have Marine Corps infantry units that are run amazingly by young men. Now let's talk about America, because that's really our crisis. That's why we're doing a special on this. That is the major crisis we have right now, among others, but it explains so much. We have an accountability crisis unlike anything I've ever seen in my entire life. Nobody is held accountable for anything. Our leaders aren't held accountable. They aren't held accountable by other institutions who should hold them accountable. For instance, the media doesn't hold the government accountable. When it comes to our elected officials, the voters themselves, us, you, me, I'm not talking about us specifically, but the voters, the citizens, they don't hold elected leaders accountable. And as a result, we have military leaders, government leaders, politicians who are none of them ever held accountable for anything at all. And it's destroying the United States of America. Look, just one last little flashback. Have you ever read a book about World War II or watched a documentary of any kind about World War II? Many things will hit you, but one of the things that always blows me away is how quickly generals and admirals, high-ranking people, were fired immediately. Fired or resigned. And oftentimes, you know how harsh I tend to be, harsh, direct, rude, you might say. Oftentimes, it seems a little harsh. Something that maybe wasn't even this general's fault. He couldn't possibly have known. He still resigns in disgrace. You know that admirals, captains, commanders, generals committed suicide in the wake of terrible things happening in World War II, so overwhelmed with guilt. I didn't perform well. That's how things used to be. Today, Donald Trump just had a bullet 2 inches away from taking his brains out of his skull. Every single thing we have found out from that point to this point has only made the security failures look worse and worse and more negligent and more negligent and more negligent. And this was the head of the Secret Service.
The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency.
Takes full responsibility. But then, these people were never fired. Now, she ended up resigning, but you know how this is going to work. She's not resigning in disgrace. She's not going to have to change her name and move to the mountains. No, 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 nothing like that. She's going to resign, or she did resign, and she's going to be handed another sweetheart gig by the system somewhere. She'll be once again back in corporate America, heading up some Fortune 500 company's security, bringing in $500,000 a year, because there is no more disgrace, because there is no more shame, because there is no more accountability. Christopher Wray was asked about this whole thing. Here's what he said.
You don't plan on resigning anytime soon, do you, sir?
No, sir.
Good to go.
It's funny. Of course he wouldn't resign. Somebody almost just shot Donald Trump in the head. We have crimes running rampant in this country. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has been hunting down pro-lifers and angry school board moms and January 6th nonviolent political protesters in droves. At no point in American history has the FBI looked so bad. They look so bad now. We understand that local law enforcement agencies have ceased cooperating with them. And Christopher Wray resigned? Resign? Why would he resign? There's no accountability anymore. Remember Afghanistan? This might be the worst example because it's the one that just tears my guts out. We had Bagram, we had an Air Force base in Afghanistan, a place where we could have pulled out of Afghanistan safely because it was a controlled environment. You could do it step by step safely. Instead, they just emptied Bagram, tried to leave. Of course, the country collapses almost immediately. Biden administration doesn't like the poll numbers. Military goes back in, tries to secure a freaking civilian airport. They've got these poor Marines, Army, and sailors stuck outside with no proper security, standing amongst crowds of people. And of course, a suicide bomber who we believe was released from Bagram when we opened up the gates, blows himself up and kills 13 of our warriors. Their deaths are on the heads of our generals, colonels, politicians. Nobody resigned. And then in the wake of that, of course, they needed some brownie points with the public because the public was angry. They sent a Reaper drone after 10 innocent people, completely innocent people. 6 of those people were children. Wrap your mind around this. You didn't do this, so you don't have to take ownership of it. But the United States of America, our military, our generals, our politicians, we murdered 10 innocent people, 6 of them children. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he was then chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, called it a what now?
We know from a variety of other means that at least one of those people that were killed was an ISIS facilitator. So were there others killed? Yes, there are others killed. Who they are, we don't know. We'll try to sort through all that. But we believe that the procedures at this point, I don't want to influence the outcome of an investigation, but at this point we think that the procedures were correctly followed and it was a righteous strike.
Righteous strike. There was no terrorists, there was no ISIS individuals, and those other people we couldn't be bothered to learn about were children who got blown up by an American Reaper drone. No resignations, no firings. When asked about it later, John Kirby said nobody was even reprimanded for it, called it, what did he call it? A failure of process. No accountability at all. Remember, Lloyd Austin, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, after the international disgrace of Afghanistan, practically laughed off the idea of resigning.
Do you have regrets about the withdrawal from Afghanistan?
I support the president's decision.
Do you have regrets about their withdrawal or how the withdrawal occurred from Afghanistan that cost the lives of 13 of our service members?
I don't have any regrets.
No regrets. 13 warriors will never celebrate Christmas with their family again. 10 innocent Afghans wiped out in response to that. Defense Secretary doesn't have a regret in the world. I realize there are huge stories out there between the assassination attempt, Joe Biden dropping out, Secret Service director testifying before Congress. And on a day like today, I'm sitting down, it's me, Matt, John, our producers, our production staff. We're trying to figure out how to put together a great show for you. We're talking about where do we begin? Where do you even begin with all these huge stories? So I thought the important thing was to keep the most important thing the first thing, all right? So without further ado, this is what I want to focus on first. Mr. Producer, write this one down, please. Joe Biden is not running for re-election. I am very, very sure about that. Joe Biden's not running for office again. The system is going to come to Joe Biden, and they're going to tap him on the shoulder, and they're going to say, Joe, we need you to go. Can't run. The system is going to force Joe Biden, maybe not to resign, but to not run again. They're going to force him to not run again because the system only has one purpose. You and I have talked about this a million times. What is that purpose? The system's only job is to protect itself. Sorry, I'm soaking it all in. I'm just soaking in the Oracle, doing what oracles do. Okay, no, all right, stop. I'm not going to be as obnoxious as you think I'm going to be. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty. Why did I know that? Why have I been calling this for over 2 years, almost 3 years? I've been telling you this is the case. Well, let me explain. You cannot ever, ever, ever understand what you see, understand the why behind all the things that happen every day. You can never understand it until you understand and accept this. The system, that's what I call it. It's all the institutions in our society becoming corrupted and then working together now in their corruption. That's what I call the system. The system is large. It is communist for the most part. It is evil. And it is much, 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 much more powerful than any one man or any one position. Any one man or any one position, whether it be President of the United States of America, Republican or Democrat, it could be the richest man in the world, it could be, you could pick whoever you want. The system itself is more evil and more powerful than any one man. And the system only exists, as I said in that video, for one purpose, to protect itself. Its entire existence, everything it does, is all about protecting itself. Therefore, the system holds no fear of anybody, not real fear. And the system, more importantly for our purposes, talking about Joe Biden, the system holds no loyalty to anybody else. I've given you this stat before, but it's true. When Pol Pot and his communists took over Cambodia, you know, there's always a central committee. They always try to sell it as, oh, we're run by a committee. The country's run by a committee. There was a central committee in Pol Pot's Cambodia. And there were 22 members of Pol Pot's Central Committee, the head communists who ran the country. And after 1 year, 18 of the 22 were dead. Corrupt, evil systems have no loyalty to anyone, presidents, senators, congressmen. They only exist to protect themselves. And Joe Biden has simply become a liability to the system. And that's why Joe Biden is gone. And so let's fast forward. Well, Joe Biden puts out a statement, because we're about to do a little weird hypothetical here. So Joe Biden puts out a statement. This is more than 24 hours ago. More than 24 hours ago, the President of the United States of America announced he's not running again. Well, it's been my intention to seek re-election. I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. Now, here's the question. Where is he? And you've heard all the rumors. Maybe you've taken part in all the rumors. Maybe he's really sick. What if he's dead? What if he's... But here, allow me to just do a little hypothetical before we move on to what the system's already doing when it comes to the successor, because I'm going to spoil a couple things for you. But before we do that, here's something. Joe Biden, I was talking to my wife about this morning. Joe Biden is old and really, really not healthy. Anyone who's gone through this in their own life, maybe you've gone through this, they've seen this before. He's not healthy. He doesn't, look, I'm not wishing death on the man. He doesn't have 10 years left. We all know that. When you start declining like that, it's bad. So Joe Biden's already not in the best of health. Joe Biden disappears. They, of course, put out a statement that he has COVID, something like that. And we'll never know if that's true. This administration has lied about everything forever. So let's just say, this is just a hypothetical. Let's just say Joe Biden is sick. And that's why we haven't seen him on camera saying anything about not running again. Okay. Now, the rumors are already flying. You've heard them. I've heard them. And who knows? But what if he is really sick? What if Joe Biden, God forbid, passes away before he can make a public statement? How does that look to the general public? It already looks like a palace coup where they very clearly did force Joe Biden out of the race. What if we never see Joe Biden speak again? What do you think the public's going to think happened there? And we're in the middle of this. This insanity is happening as I'm talking to you right now. And look, let me spoil something for everybody here, because there's a bunch of people right now who are trying to turn this into some fascinating game of chess for Democrats to see who the heir apparent's going to be. Look, okay, again, it's not your mommy's show, it's your daddy's show, so let me just give it to you right now. We don't have to do this, all right? It's Kamala Harris. Here's the deal. The system has already chosen Kamala Harris. The Clintons have lined up behind Kamala Harris. Pelosi's lined up behind Kamala Harris. Alex Soros has lined up behind Kamala Harris. Willie Brown has stood behind Kamala Harris several times. We know that the system has made its choice. So it's going to be Kamala Harris. It's going to be Dome. I know it. You know it. You better know it. It is. But here's the deal. Democrats have been rigging their primaries, their presidential primaries, for years, and their base is furious about it. Remember, they just really screwed Hillary Clinton out of the one where Barack Obama beat her in a primary. They changed all the rules to make sure Obama could win that one. They constantly changed the rules and mixed things up to deny Bernie Sanders the primary. They did that last time, the one Joe Biden won. Democrats always choose their candidate from up on high, and the candidate has already been chosen. It's Kamala Harris. The only debate we can have right now is who's going to be VP. But here's the deal. Democrats know they can't make it too obvious that Kamala Harris, that Dome has already been chosen. So then they're going to do this thing of, well, I'm going to try to earn the nomination, and we'll have like a mini primary at the convention, and they'll act like it's just, well, it's anyone's game here. It's not anyone's game here. It's Dome. It's already been Dome. You know that with the powers who have already lined up behind her. It's done, signed, sealed, delivered. And look, the media, they've got their marching orders too. They, like every other man, is lined up behind Dome.
I'm going to be really straightforward. If the Democrats want to give the White House back to Donald Trump, let them go into a nomination process, open nomination process, and disrespect and step over the first black woman vice president in this country, and they will be committing absolute suicide. Absolute suicide. That is the surefire way for Donald Trump to become president.
Now, let's wrap this up because we have so much we have to get to. Buck Sexton's going to join us. So he's got to eat a little crow. And Buck's such a great sport about this because we have a bet and he was wrong. Anyway, before we get to all that, let's wrap this thing up really quickly. We talk a lot about the system. We just had a long talk about the system, what they just did, pushed Joe Biden out, brought Harris in. We knew all that. People ask a lot, well, who's the system? Who's part of it? Well, first of all, understand the system is not one person. It's many, 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 many powerful people, most of them Democrats, almost all of them Democrats, billionaires, Democrat politicians. There's a committee, if you will. Just like every communist country, we have a committee of people from tech billionaires to Nancy Pelosi types, but that's who I actually want to focus on here. There's a lot of reporting out now about what Nancy Pelosi was doing behind closed doors. And she pretty much threatened Joe Biden, hey, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, and the easy way just left. Nancy Pelosi, she's on the board of directors for the system, believe me. This is a very, very powerful, very ruthless woman. Been warning you about her for quite some time. There is a relationship between citizens and their government in every single nation. This has always been the case. It is a relationship, whatever form of government it is. It could be a monarchy. We could be talking about kings and queens and the peasants, or a constitutional republic, a representative republic like ours. Doesn't matter the form of government it is, there is a relationship between citizens and their government. And there always, always, always must be a certain level of trust between citizens and their government. Otherwise, the whole relationship's going to blow up. Look, we'll take it back to personal real quick before we get to Kim Cheadle. In your personal relationship, if I stop at the gas station on the way home for some hot Cheetos with some of the cheese dip that I put on it, and I get home and the wife says, "Why are you late? 5 minutes late." She wouldn't do this. And I say, "I stopped over for Cheetos." She said, "No, you were probably out drinking or something somewhere." How long would the relationship last if that's what life was like? Every time she picked up her phone, she's on it. "Who are you texting? Is that another guy?" How long would it last? It's not going to last. It doesn't work. That's the kind of relationship we currently have with our government. And it's getting worse and worse and worse as the abuse from the government continues without end. I have been warning about the lack of trust, the loss of trust in our institutions for the longest time. In fact, I warned you time and time and time and time again during COVID, as every government institution was weaponized against you and only worked on behalf of the system. I warned all the people in power, you are separating yourself from the people. You are breaking the trust chain, and it is not easily repaired. And now here we sit. We are 10 days removed from the attempted assassination of the Republican nominee for president of the United States of America. And here's how it normally works. How it normally works when people come up with, I'm going to call them conspiracy theories, even though I don't like using this term anymore, but normally in the wake of anything, no matter what it is, it could be an earthquake, but especially things like assassination attempts, man-made horrors, man-made things. In the wake of anything, it is human nature to start coming up with conjuring stories in your mind about what may have happened, what did happen. It was the grassy knoll. It was that's a very human nature thing. But over time, the JFK assassination aside, over time, most of those theories, while they'll always still exist on some level, they tend to kind of fade away with the passage of time. They just don't last. Why is that? Why don't they last? Because as information, as new information is revealed, as information is provided by the people, provided to the people, I should say, the people will see clearly, oh, okay, we have this document, we have this video, we have this audio. No, I read it myself. Okay, never mind. As the truth is revealed, the conspiracy theories tend to fade away. But we have a really big problem here with the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. What happened that day? I don't know. And you know I don't ever bring you wild theories I have unless I tell you they're wild theories. I don't do that. I would never try to mislead you. I give you my honesty about what I feel about things. What happened that day? Was it a deranged, nut job, lone gunman commie who wanted to blow Trump's head off? Maybe. Certainly could be. A guy who got his knowledge of firearms, explosive from the dark web? Could be. Was this an assassination attempt arranged by a hostile foreign entity? Iran, Russia, China? I don't know. How would I know? Was this an assassination attempt arranged by the United States government? I don't know. How would I know? Look, when the Secret Service director sits in front of Congress and is asked about basics like the radio communications and answers like this, well, how am I supposed to know?
Does the Secret Service routinely record communications between and amongst detail?
Radio communications?
Any communication?
Email communications are captured, as well as text messages, and then depending on the detail, radio communications are recorded.
Does the Secret Service have recorded communications from the July 13th event?
We do not have radio communications from that day.
What? On the day the Secret Service failed, and that's being kind? You know, look, as we go through the different theories in our head, the Secret Service failing is the nicest thing we can say. You don't have the radio recordings of that day? What happened? Did they get lost right next to the Epstein files the FBI recovered from his home? Where are the radio communications from that day? Why don't we have them? These are the things that lead to theories. Theories that have people, myself included, going all over the place. What happened that day with the Secret Service, with the United States government? Why would they allow him to have a rangefinder?
Did he have a rangefinder? There were some reports that the individual had a rangefinder. That would certainly raise my suspicion. Did he have a rangefinder?
Yes, he did, but may I explain that at a number of our sites, especially when you're at outdoor venues, a rangefinder is not a prohibited item. It is sometimes an item that is brought in by individuals if you're going to be in the back.
Did anybody confront him on that? Anybody ask him questions? What are you doing with the rangefinder? Anybody confront him on his presence where he was in proximity to the president?
So again, to my knowledge, I believe that was the process that was taking place, was to locate the individual.
Did they confront him? Did they go up to him? Did they talk to him?
I do not have those details at this time.
Those are important details.
This is how theories gain legs. Why doesn't the Secret Service director, well, former Secret Service director, she resigned this morning, why doesn't she know anything? Or does she know everything and she's lying? Keep in mind, we are not 9 minutes since this time. This is 10 days ago now. Yesterday it was 9. When she was giving this testimony, she was 9 days removed. 9 days is an eternity. Rapid fire investigation, timelines laid out. Did you hear her answer about the basics, like the timeline?
Why was Crooks able to fly a drone over the entire area the day of the rally and the day of his assassination attempt?
To my knowledge, he did not fly the drone over the entire area.
How did he fly a drone over the area, period? Any part of the area?
Again, I would have to go back and check the timeline of when that took place.
Do you have a timeline do you have a timeline at all from any of the day?
I have a timeline that does not have specifics.
What? You've seen a timeline, right? I mean, I don't want to do any amateur artwork here on the show, but you've seen a timeline? You know what a timeline looks like? It's a line. You know, that's why they call it a timeline. And on the timeline, they have times, dates. 9:30 a.m., July, 10:30 a.m., July. That's a timeline. If there aren't any specifics on there, then it's not a timeline at all. It's just a line on a page. She really doesn't have any specifics, or she does, and she's lying. Who's covering up what? Or is nobody covering up anything? Are we just simply led now by the biggest bunch of DEI morons in the history of the world, and what we're seeing is weapons-grade incompetence? Or was this an organized assassination attempt put on by somebody? Foreign actor? Domestic actor? Corporate entity? Who knows? What I do know is this. There's virtually nothing I can refute at this point in time, because I don't have any institutions I can trust, and neither do you. Think about this. I want you to really, really think about this. Right now, we're angry. We don't have answers. We get a lot of I don't knows. I don't have the timeline. We have all that. But we will eventually be delivered answers by the FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is the one who's going to eventually bring us the answers we need to calm our fears. Are you going to believe a single word of any of that? Especially because we all know the FBI is going to come with the lone gunman theory, as we know. I don't have any answers. Look, until today, when we finally got proof of life that Joe Biden was out sauntering around, and he looked terrible, I should note. Before today, people yesterday, all day, I'm sure you saw this, they were accusing Joe Biden of being dead. People thought, well, we haven't seen him on video. He said he's not running for office. We haven't even seen him on video. And you know what? You, me, we couldn't shoot down a single one of those theories either. I don't know. We're being lied to by everyone at all times. How do you know? Look, Joe Biden got run out of office after the majority of the Democrat primaries across the country. Joe Biden, the clear primary winner. Now, you can argue he shouldn't have been, or I can argue he shouldn't have been all day long. Joe Biden was the clear primary winner, the man who was about to accept the formal nomination as President of the United States of America. Powerful people within our government and outside of our government decided they didn't like that anymore, and they just decided, well, remove him. And they did. We now know, courtesy of New York Post reporting, that the plan was to dump Joe all along. Now, granted, if you've watched this show for any length of time, you know that because I've been telling you that. What? The plan was to dump him all along? And now they're trying to say the health cover-up began as early as 2021. Okay, now let's clarify something about the health cover-up. The health cover-up didn't begin in 2021. Because I was here talking about it and you were here talking about it when Joe Biden ran against Donald Trump the first time. It was obvious something was wrong. Granted, he's worse now because you don't get better when you're in that medical condition. He's much worse now, but we all knew it was wrong. How many times did we sit here and talk about this? Remember when he got busted? He did the sit-down interview, and he got busted. They didn't account for the reflection. He got busted using note cards. Someone was behind the camera holding up flashcards for the guy. Joe Biden, the cover-up began from the second they rolled Joe Biden out there to run for president of the United States of America. All these people were lying about it at all times, and they all did so. Why? Well, for the exact same reason they just kicked him out the door. They did so because of power. Now, I've said something before, I'm going to say it again. Joe Biden, after that debate, Joe Biden went through what I have called the asking phase. You heard me say it here, that he's in the asking phase right now, where they were slowly leaking to the media. Pelosi meets with him. Well, Joe, maybe it's for the best. Obama meets with him privately. Joe, don't you think it's for the best? That was the asking phase. What I said to Joe Biden, not personally, obviously, but what I said was the telling phase was about to get here, and we now know, courtesy of leaked comments from Nancy Pelosi, that the telling phase was here. How bad would that telling phase have been? Well, I want you to think about this. Just put this in your mind. Robert Hur. You know who Robert Hur is. He's the special counsel who was investigating Joe Biden and the fact that Joe Biden illegally took a bunch of classified documents that weren't his. Robert Hur sat down with Joe Biden for a deposition. Now, pause for a moment. Think about this. What do we know about Joe Biden's public persona over the last couple years? Well, here's what we know now. We know that everything is structured. He is in such bad shape mentally that even when he meets privately with his cabinet, they have to submit their questions and talking points ahead of time, and they're given a time when he will call on them privately. Joe Biden is given specific instructions when he gives a speech on where exactly he walks out to the stage, and then when he's done, where is he supposed to turn and walk off the stage. He has been coddled like a child because he now has the mind of a child. What I'm trying to tell you is the Joe Biden we have seen publicly, wrap your mind around this, that's the best Joe Biden looks and sounds. You realize that? That's the Joe Biden with the script, everything's laid out, okay, do this, this, and this, read this off the teleprompter, call on this person. That's the Joe Biden hopped up on whatever drug cocktail they have him on. That's the Joe Biden where they've allotted time for him to have maximum rest. The Joe Biden you have seen, the Joe Biden I have seen over the last few years is the best Joe Biden is in any given day. So back to Robert Hur. Joe Biden had to sit down and he had to give a deposition to Robert Hur on tape. They recorded this. This was behind closed doors. This wasn't for you. It wasn't for the cameras. And Joe Biden knew that his Attorney General, Merrick Garland, because he's a piece of crap, would cover that up. How bad are those tapes? We now know the federal government is coming out now. They're saying they, quote, found the missing transcripts of the tapes. If Joe Biden didn't make this decision, I'm telling you right now, you were going to listen to those tapes on the nightly news and they were going to be ugly. And now you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the system. You just watched it in action, told you about it a million times. You know what it is. The system is bigger than any one man. The system is vicious, violent, deadly when it has to be. The system is essentially this. All of our institutions are now commanded by the same poisonous communist ideology, and they all now work together against you and against your country at all times. The system is much more powerful than presidents, FBI directors, billionaires, you name it. The system is this gigantic evil thing that governs over us now, and the system simply decided, primary, no primary, we're done with Joe Biden. He's a liability. Get rid of him. And the system obviously decided right now that Dome was going to be the nominee. It's obvious. There was, as soon as Joe Biden announced that he was dropping out, everyone was trying to play chess with the whole thing. Who's it going to be? Might it be could it be this senator or this? And it was very obvious. I came out here right away and I told you it was going to be Dome. It was obvious because you saw the system line up behind her. All the board of directors of the system, from the billionaires to the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. Dome's practically just accepting the nomination now.
So, Wisconsin, I am told as of this morning that we have earned the support of enough delegates to secure the Democratic nomination.
Wow. Really got out there and earned it, didn't you, Dome? Look, Nancy Pelosi ran out the President of the United States of America and installed Dome. Chuck Schumer ran out the President of the United States of America and installed Dome. I mean, here was Schumer yesterday.
So now that the process is played out, from the grassroots bottom up, we are here today to throw our support behind Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm clapping. You don't have to.
And here's the real truth of it, and this is the sad truth. You know about the system, you know what it does, you know how evil it is. The sad truth is the Democrat in your life, the liberal Aunt Peggy in your life, whether it's your mom, your coworker, your brother, whoever it may be, they're going to be wearing a Kamala Harris t-shirt. They're going to put up a Kamala Harris yard sign. They're going to act excited to vote for Kamala Harris. They just had the man who was about to be the nominee removed from power by the system. Dome was then installed into power by the system, and the liberal Aunt Peggy in your life is going to pretend to be happy about it. Why? Because Democrats are herd animals. They are truly, truly a sad, sad lot. And this is from me. You know I'm more than willing to insult Republicans, both elected officials and voters, at every front. The truth is, Democrats move, I call them a herd, but Democrats move as a mob because they are communist revolutionaries. They have always understood the real strength they have is in their numbers. And so they will move even in directions they don't want to move. Like lemmings, they'll go running right off the end of the cliff because they understand their real true power is in the mob. So they will line up behind Dome now. They will pretend to be excited by Dome now. And we're going to have to endure that woman for, well, hopefully just about 3 months. and you're going to hear all the normal things you remember you heard when Barack Obama was running. Even though Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, by Joe Biden's own admission, you're going to be called a racist endlessly if you point that out. The question is, are you strong enough to stand up to this kind of criticism?
This is an organization, this is a right-wing campaign that's going to be racist, misogynistic against the vice president, but we're going to stand on the issues and what really matters. It's the fact that she is qualified. They want to call her a DEI president or DEI candidate. She has more experience than Trump and J.D. Vance combined times a million, right? She worked at the state level. She was the attorney general. She's vice president of the United States. She was a senator representing one of the largest states in the entire country. And so these are just racist dog whistles. Whenever you hear DEI, I want you to think about the N-word. I want you to think about racial slurs. That's what they actually mean.
Here's what I want you to think about. That human being there, hate him all you want, what he's doing has a purpose. That purpose is to let the nice people, to get the nice people to be quiet. Are you one of those nice people, a people pleaser? People are born this way. Either you are or you're not. But that's the point of a lot of this communist propaganda. It's racist. It's saying the N-word. They're trying to get the nice people to, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I don't want to be called a racist. It's why single women are so susceptible to communism. Don't fall for that at all.